find your flow, follow the map. Mile high dreaming's got your back.
Biggest test, I've already passed it, which was making it up the stairs in heels. So feeling pretty good about that. Josh, I'm sorry. Word on the street is that I am the favorite admin evangelist. Did I just hear that? All right. Thank you so much for welcoming here, for bringing me back to my home community. This is where my Salesforce journey, my Salesforce career started. So it is just such a joy, and it really does feel like a homecoming to be here with all of you. Saying that, I'm going to start by thanking all of you. Thank you so much for being here, for giving up your time, for taking time away from work, from traveling, many of you, from different places, and actually valuing and placing great importance on your learning, your networking, your career development. Thank you so much to the organizers and the volunteers of Mile High Dreamin'. And big thank you to our sponsors. Chris was talking about how important and integral they are to the success of an event like this. I was on the core planning committee for Forcelandia, which is a community event, a little smaller than this, in Portland, Oregon, for several years. And I can tell you there were years that we didn't think that we were going to be able to host an event, and a sponsor came in and saved the day. So please go say hi to them, learn about their products. Even if it's not something that's that you're going to use in your own organization and with your business, when you're at community events like this and you're talking to someone and you're helping them troubleshoot and solve a problem, they might have a problem that you're like, hey, I was talking to Amy over at Data Groomer, and I think she has a solution for you. So please get familiar with them, talk to them, and thank them. All right, Christine already ran through my credentials. This is a QR code to my LinkedIn if you would like to double check them, or if you have any questions after my session today. This session is really near and dear to my heart because it's not a technical one. It's not something technical that I'm here to talk to you about today. It's something that I truly believe in, that I have put a lot of energy and love into from my own career development. And it's really something that I have been a use case for, of treating my career development as a practice. So a little bit about me that you don't know is that I wanted my current job for 7 years before I interviewed for it. I found out what an admin evangelist did. I met them. I saw the amazing content that they were putting out for admins into the community. And I was at Postino in Lowhigh. Do you guys know it? Yeah. I was with my fellow community group leader at Postino, and I told her that's going to be my job one day. And every decision that I made for 7 years had that in the back of my mind. I didn't even know if that job was still going to exist when I was ready to apply for it. It came up one time a few years ago, and I didn't think I was ready. So I didn't apply, and I waited, and I kept putting love and attention and intention into my own career development, and then was very lucky a year ago when I was made lead admin evangelist, which I still consider to be the absolute best job in the world. So we're going to talk about a few things today. We're going to start off talking about challenging hustle culture. We're going to dive into how presence and awareness helps us with that. We're going to talk about how we treat our careers as practice and not perfection. And then we're going to finish up with alignment and hopefully fulfillment. And the whole stem of this conversation and why I think it's so important is because of the state of the world that we live in right now. We live in an AI-driven world, and we are not on the sidelines of it. We're all tied here to this place, to this event, because we are Salesforce professionals. So in some way, that Salesforce thread ties us together. And that means that we're at the forefront of this. We're not watching from the sidelines. This is part of our everyday life. You might have heard that we are in the fourth wave of the Industrial Revolution, which is characterized by things like contextual and generative prompt-based AI, real-time AI applications, as well as assistive and autonomous agents, which is a huge mouthful. You might have heard that in articles that you read, in blog posts, in podcasts, or even at a Salesforce keynote, because I know that our CEO, Mark, loves to talk about the Industrial Revolution and where we stand in that today. And it's all true. These are things that when I started my admin career about 10 years ago, I didn't know that I would be facing and that they would be part of my everyday life. And they've really escalated in the past few years. And because of that, my personal career, and I think everyone that I've spoken to about their own career development and their current roles, feel that we are in a mix between transformational and turbulent. Transformational because we have all of this accelerated innovation and productivity gains. We're able to do our work faster because we have assistance from AI and from maybe our agentic coworkers. You're all here because of Salesforce, so I'm sure that you've at least heard the term Agent Force over the past year. And then at the same time, that means that our roles are being completely redefined and rewritten, and that's a little uncertain, and that's where we feel that turbulence that's coming into our sphere. So how can we take this kind of future fatigue that is causing overwhelm in our job searches, in our career development, and go beyond just feeling like we're constantly trying to catch up with the world around us and actually be prepared for that? And that is really the synthesis and the beginning of this conversation today. So I did a little word map, and I'll come back to this later, but this is something that when I did a search of all of the different things that I'm hearing from job searchers, and I was looking primarily on LinkedIn, these are a lot of the terms that I'm currently seeing. People are worried about AI coming not just for their jobs, but how they're going to interact with it in their roles. What do interviews even look like anymore? The process is changing at different organizations. Do I need the same qualifications that I had and that I needed 2 years ago? Or is that new? People are worried. Imposter syndrome is a huge topic in our industry. It's something that I think all of us have faced. And guess what? It's super stressful. So we've got this kind of hustle in our head. My husband likes to call it all the bees buzzing around in our head because you just have all this noise constantly. So our first step is to actually challenge the hustle culture that we've been placed into. And this is harder than it sounds because it is all around us. Because this conversation stemmed from the AI-driven world that we live in, I actually had ChatGPT help me create this definition of hustle culture based on a bunch of articles that I fed in. And I think it did a pretty good job. It said that hustle culture was the glorification of relentless work and constant productivity. God, that sounds exhausting. Hustle culture is characterized by a couple things. By the fact that you not only can, but you should always be doing more. That rest is laziness. That your worth is tied to your title. And that success means sacrifice. And that's not that's not our goal of what AI is trying to do to us. AI is supposed to help us be more productive, faster. I was talking to someone at Forcelandia last week, and he said that because of use of artificial intelligence in his role, he's able to log off at 4 o'clock every day, and he's able to go to his kid's soccer game. And that wasn't something he was able to do before as a developer. He has assistants that he didn't have in the past. But we have to get ourselves in a place where we're working with that and not just constantly trying to keep up with the hustle. Well, that slide's really hard to see, I'm sorry. That's a giant stack of work that is on top of someone with a briefcase, if you're having trouble seeing that. And that's sometimes what this kind of hustle culture feels like, and it's been culturally glorified. It's something that we are seeing all over the place. That's been created as something that we just feel is inherent to the way that we do work. And with AI, a lot of times, we're just constantly running to catch up, and it can feel like a big weight that is on top of us. So the reason that we want to challenge this should be pretty obvious. None of us want to feel that overwhelm. But how we challenge it is to treat our career as a practice. And this is a big shift in how we look at things. I don't know about all of you, but for a while, I was thinking about my career as job to job to job and figuring out what that next stepping stone was. And that's great because you might find opportunities that you didn't know existed before, and you might land on your path. But what if you have an idea of what your path is, what you want to do, where you want to be in the next role in 5 years, in 10 years, or if there's a specific industry that you want to be working with, a specific type of client. And if you treat your career as a practice, you are put in a good space to be able to do this and follow your own roadmap. So characteristics of a practice are intention, really identifying what you want that next step to be, and mindfully working towards it. Now, I am not here to tell you that you shouldn't just take a job when you need a job. There are situations where we need a job and we need to pay the bills, and we are not responsible for just ourselves as much as we'd like to think that. We have families and people counting on us. So sometimes you are taking a job because you need it, and that is okay. What that intention can do in a situation like that is you can identify skills from that job, even if it's not where you want to be, that you can take on to land in the position that you would like to be in. Sometimes that lesson is, I don't ever want to do this again. I gave it a try, and I'm just going to rule that out. And that's valuable information as well. Practices also constantly evolve. AI has taught us that as well. We are always learning something new. You might not be in the same spot today that you were in yesterday, and that is okay. Single focused. This one is huge for me personally. We've all heard the term multitasking, yes? No? This is a test. Are you guys awake? So multitasking is part of this kind of cultural glorification of hustle, right? It's a term that's been popularized and even seen it a lot in interviews. People say, I'm a great multitasker. And that's kind of a red flag, actually, because multitasking is not just being able to handle a lot of different projects. It is actually doing multiple things at the same time. So you're on a meeting, you're responding to a Slack message, you're writing a blog post. What is getting your full attention there? None of it. You're not showing up with your best self. Single focusedness is the antithesis of that. It is being able to focus on a single thing at a time and dedicate your full attention to completing that task before moving on to the next thing. And our careers are both human-centered and self-centered. Your career is about you. Yes, you might be using it to support other people in your life, but in the end, it is you that is showing up for work every day and in this career, in this industry, hopefully finding joy and fulfillment. Again, that's our last chapter, so we'll get there. The human-centered is kind of a new thing that I like to call out because this wasn't even a question in the past. Instead of thinking, how do I fit into this AI-driven world, can we reframe and shift the lens to think about what are my unique human qualities that I can bring to this role? And that includes things like emotional intelligence, creativity, being able to adapt, and being able to build strong relationships. So before we move on to the next chapter, I'm going to leave you with this question. And it's not something I expect you to have an answer to right now, but something that I would like you to take home and think about. And it's, what does success look like in our careers if it isn't defined by speed or titles? All right, our next chapter we're going to talk about is presence and awareness. And this is where a lot of my yoga teaching is going to come in, so stick with me here, because I also have some science to go alongside with that. So when I think about a practice, yoga is the first thing that comes to my mind because I teach yoga and I've been practicing for years and years and years. So those characteristics of intention, that evolving practice, human-centered, self-centered, single-focusedness, those all apply to any practice. Yoga does not need to be your guidepost. In fact, I'm guessing that it is not for many of you in this room. A practice is really anything that you are honing your craft. It can be mental, it can be physical. I know that there are some knitters in the room that consider that their practice and something they're constantly working and evolving to get better at. We have marathon runners, we have boxers, we have all sorts of different practices. So choose the one that resonates with you as an example here, and think about how you do that mindfully, because my guess is that something that you're passionate about and continuing to evolve and work on, you already are. And when I talk about mindfulness, I'm not talking about doing a guided meditation. My friend Josh would be running out the room right now if I was. He famously, in one of his keynotes, tells everyone that mindful meditation is the worst, or guided meditation, excuse me. I'm not telling you to do anything like that or practice deep breathing, although those are certainly ways that you can be present and mindful. I'm simply talking about identifying and eliminating distraction. And this is super challenging because we live in a world that is designed to distract us. between the number of emails we get, the number of Slack messages, the Instagram notifications on our phone, the text messages. In fact, why don't you guys pull out your phones right now, take a look at your home screen. How many notifications are on your screen at this moment?
0.
The GTD table over here has 0. How many? Throw out a number. Yeah? 5, that's pretty good. I saw someone the other day on the airplane next to me who had over 1,000 emails in that little bubble on their phone. I nearly died. I'm also a tab closer on my browser, so it killed me. Anyways, the whole point is that we live in a world that is completely and specifically designed to distract us. Hey, our brains are never quiet. As much as people like to tell you that mindfulness helps you still the brain, that's not possible. It's not real. Your brain was designed to think. How do we instead identify those thoughts coming in, categorize them, and use them efficiently? So we are going to do a 1-minute mindfulness practice together. I'm going to walk you through it first before we start. If you hate it, I'm sorry. It's a minute of your life, and you can be mad at me for that 1 minute later. What we're going to do is an exercise called Touch, See, Go, and it's something that I do almost every single day when all those bees are in my head buzzing around and I need to focus. And the concept is that you are going to either close your eyes or soften your gaze, if that's comfortable for you to do, and you are just going to sit with your thoughts. The thoughts are going to come in like crazy because it's going to be quiet. You are going to touch them first. So the thoughts come in, you touch them, you recognize them. The next step is seeing what they are. This is categorizing them. Oh, what is that thought? Is it about what's for dinner, what's for lunch today, who I'm going to have happy hour with, who do I want to make sure that I'm networking with at this event? You're going to see those thoughts. And then you are going to let them go and touch the next one that comes in. So I'm going to put a minute on my stopwatch right now. Again, if you would like to close your eyes or soften your gaze, please feel free to do so. And we're going to practice this. Take a deep breath in and let it go. Can I tell you, first of all, how unnerving it is to stand on a stage for a minute of silence in a full room? Hopefully, what you experienced there in that single minute of time was the fact that your attention was strengthened. You created space between stimulus and response, because you weren't able to just immediately have an emotional response and dive into something. Hopefully you've reduced some mental clutter and started to just build awareness on how your brain functions and how you can bring that into your work. That's just a minute. I do this probably 5 minutes a day, 10 if I'm feeling really overwhelmed or a lot going on. And if this is something that works for you, it's something that strengthens the more you practice it. If it's something that didn't work for you, throw it away. I'll give you some other suggestions. The purpose of mindfulness is not to eliminate distraction. It's to empower you to work with it skillfully, which is fantastic for both our current roles and any future roles. Okay, now you might be thinking That's really great, Kate, but it sounds super fluffy. Why don't you go back to your yoga studio? There's some serious science behind all of this, and I will preface this by saying I am by no means a neuroscience. I am just someone who's very interested in this, has done a lot of reading, and if you're interested, I have plenty of articles and things that I can share. But what is happening in your brain when you cultivate presence or mindfulness and slow down is that you are allowing that thought to go into your prefrontal cortex, which is the rational decision-making center of your brain. Sounds great, right? What that does is it gives us space to think about thoughts as they enter and to choose how we are going to react, rather than reacting emotionally or impulsively, which when you do that, it's the amygdala that gets triggered. I do this like I know where it is in my brain, so forgive me if I'm in the complete wrong spot. The amygdala is what happens when you just take information and you just immediately react. That's what's stimulated in your brain. And this is also called the fear center. Now, I don't know about you, but given the choice, I don't really want anything that's called the fear center of my brain, even if that's just like a nickname or part-time thing. I don't want that responding on my behalf. So, being able to ground yourself and be present allows you to create that barrier. And it does a couple things in your brain. It reduces cognitive overload when you become grounded in the present moment. It enhances your emotional regulation, which might sound obvious after what I just told you. And it also improves clarity and focus. So it allows us to actually be more efficient and do better in the job at hand, which is pretty revolutionary and fantastic. All right, now I told you if you didn't like that touch, see, go exercise, I'd give you some other options. There are plenty of different mindfulness practices out there. You can try a few. Some you might like, some you might not. I already mentioned guided meditation. Some people are big fans of that, especially body scans, because it gives you the chance to focus on different areas of your body and draw your attention to something else and create that mind-body connection. So that's one thing you could do. Breathing exercises or pranayama, plenty of different ways that you could do that to just slow down and allow thought to enter your brain. Things like box breathing, which is used by Navy SEALs to do this exact same thing. Or things like counting your breath for a certain amount of time. Go 1 on the inhale, 2 on the exhale, 3. You get the point. Things like that are really impactful because our brain loves patterns. And if we give it a pattern or an exercise, it wants to do that. It wants to perform. And in taking that exercise, it's actually going to be able to allow you to be present and mindful. Some other things you could do if you have a practice already that is something that you enjoy, spend more time on that. I used to think that if I logged off and I had a busy day that maybe I shouldn't go to yoga because I didn't have time. I found that I was happier and more present with my husband and my dogs and my other activities in my life when I did take the time to go to yoga, even if it felt like it was squeezed in, because that was creating that mindful barrier, that space in my brain to actually be able to be present. So time was more meaningful. Lots of other things you can do. If all of those don't sound appealing to you, mind mapping is another really great one. You can put a timer on and just write down every single thing that comes into your brain. And then you can take time. You can categorize those things. You can see what was the most important, what kept coming up over and over and over again. And you can actually use that to think about things like how to approach a job interview, the things that you want to share about yourself, what you want your role to look like. I do this at goal setting time every year because I'm like, oh shoot, that came up about 6 times if I mind mapped. I should probably talk about that because it's important to me. Things like that are a little less like woo, let's call it. All right, how am I doing on time? Okay, we're still good. Practice, not perfection. This is one of my favorite quotes in the entire world, and I'm sure my yoga students get so sick of hearing it. Every week I tell them that's why it's called a practice, not a perfect. And it's super applicable to all the things that we do in our lives. So what makes a practice? From what I've seen in our careers as Salesforce professionals, the number one thing that each and every person in this room who is successful in this role does is that you are a learner. You enjoy learning. You are passionate about learning what is next, and you want to invest time in being educated and sharing that information with others. Little kind of personal story. Before I started this job, I was a little bit worried because Salesforce had just really announced Prompt Builder, and they had announced Einstein Copilot, as it was called at the time. Now, of course, that is Agentforce. So I wasn't super familiar with those things. I was working predominantly with nonprofits who didn't have a ton of budget to spend on artificial intelligence. So it was brand new to me, and I knew I was entering this role and that I was going to be expected to perform and know about that. I'm a learner, so I went and I spent time on Trailhead. You guys have heard of it? Great session later with Kelly about how they make those Trailhead badges. So if anyone's interested in that, great one to add to your agenda this week. So I went to Trailhead. I spent a weekend on it because I just was super excited and invested and I wanted to keep learning more. And then I was talking to a coworker on that Monday morning following the weekend, and we were having the usual like, oh, what'd you do with your weekend conversation? And I told her what I did. And she looked at me, and we were peers in the same role, and she was like, are those Salesforce things? And I just was shocked because I'm surrounded by all of you who know what's out there. You might not know how to use every single piece of technology, but you know it exists, and you know where you can go find more information. And I think that's what sets us apart and allows us to be successful, is this intentional learning, which is conveniently our next slide. All right, intentional learning is what helps us remove ourselves from that hustle culture where we're constantly keeping up, trying to learn what has already happened. Intentional learning is us being like, oh, that's a trend that I see, or I heard that, or I listened to a podcast about that. I'm going to go dive into that because it interests and fascinates me. And then when that becomes your habit, you actually are ahead of the curve. And Trailhead is a great place for us to go to. There are lots of different blogs, podcasts, articles, learnings online, YouTube series, and also we have the ability to get hands-on, which is pretty awesome. We can go into a sandbox and we can actually do the things and learn by doing. We can click through it. I love it. Thank you. All right. A story of Jiro Ono. Has anyone seen the documentary on Netflix, Jiro Dreams of Sushi? Yeah. Super touching and inspirational story. Jiro is currently 99 years old. He runs a 10-seat sushi restaurant in a Tokyo subway station. And he received 3 Michelin stars. Can you imagine a subway station restaurant with 3 Michelin stars? They've since taken the stars away because it is so exclusive that you actually can't get into the restaurant unless you have a local connection. There is a story that Barack Obama was only able to go to this restaurant because someone local was able to make the connection. They don't invite in Michelin inspectors, hence losing the stars. They don't care about celebrities. It's about the food. And you better be ready to eat because you only have 20 minutes once you get there. Now, Jiro started very early. He came from a really unfortunate circumstance. He was 7 years old when he had to leave his home because they were so poor. And he went and became an apprentice at a sushi restaurant by the age of 10. From there, he opened his restaurant, the same one in the Tokyo subway station, at age 40, and has made this life's purpose of completely perfecting the art of sushi. When he trains new chefs, they spend like 10 years learning just to make sushi rice. They spend 5 years learning how to properly cut the fish. It's a story of practice and devotion and building your career into the absolute best thing that it can be because you are passionate about it and treat your career as a practice. So I thought that was a really interesting story, great documentary if anyone's interested. Along with that, we encounter failure along the way. I actually think I would be a little surprised if I talked to anyone who didn't feel like they'd failed at some point in their career. There's a reason it's an interview question just about every job interview you go to. Tell me about a time that you failed and what did you do? Failure is feedback. Sometimes, if we decide to just brush aside failure, we don't learn the lesson from it, and it doesn't become part of our practice and our evolution. One of the first times I failed as a Salesforce admin, I was working for a nonprofit here in Denver, Colorado. I had no idea what Salesforce was when I started that job. First day, they told me that I was in charge of it, so that was scary. I had a wonderful mentor. I'd been learning how to use Salesforce with her, and she told me, hey, why don't you go create your first field? And I remember it very clearly because we remember our failures and hopefully learn from them. It was meant to go, it was a field that was going to go on contacts. It was a pick list, and it was the different types of camp that kids might attend. Sounds easy enough. I'm also going to add the little tidbit that this organization did not use sandboxes, and I didn't know what that was yet. I create my pick list. I'm super proud of myself. I'm going through the steps, and there's that step of, do you want to add a default value? You know the one. I look at this camp spreadsheet that I have. I'm going to save myself so much time because almost every single one of these campers has attended this particular type of camp. Default value, great. Done. Super proud of myself. I get a phone call a couple hours later. Hey, is there a reason that every contact, including the adults, has now attended wilderness camp? Default values don't work how you think they do, especially when you're new. So a couple lessons that I learned from that stick with me today. One, I learned what sandboxes are, and I brought them to that organization and have been told that they still use them today as part of their testing and deployment process. Big win! Might seem like a very obvious one, but at the time it was not for me. I had no idea. Two, I am never going to create a default value again without really thinking through what that means. Again, seems pretty obvious, but I had no idea. Three, what was my third? Oh, the third is really important. Always have a backup plan of how to undo something. I never went into a new client's org when I was a consultant without a specific spelled out plan of how I could undo something, no matter how certain I was of the work that I was doing. Those lessons have stuck with me. They went from something that was really embarrassing at the time and that I thought that I had just failed and let my whole organization down, this tiny nonprofit of like 10 people that were not that upset with me, by the way, and have turned it into life lessons that I carry with me and teach other people as I mentor them and help them become stronger admins. So embrace your failure, turn it into feedback. And then something that has become really important is instead of asking, am I good at this? Because we're not just good at everything instinctively. Ask, how can I practice this? And then formulate that into your plan. I had to practice flow a lot, I'm going to throw out there. I was not just good at it. And now it's one of my favorite things to do in my job. All right, final section, alignment and hopefully fulfillment. Okay, so this is an incredible luxury and something that is the goal for all of us at the end of this. We have our career development plan. We treat our career as a practice. We go from role to role with intention. We follow these steps. We invest in the learning. And then we hopefully have the amazing luxury to select a role that matches our personal values. Now, this might be a specific job, a specific company, a specific client type that you like to work with. My good friend Ryan is in the room somewhere, and he's done this beautifully. He's a super talented solution architect who has this incredible knowledge base of running and working with nonprofits and of conservation and sustainability. And he's been able to turn his career into prioritizing clients at nonprofits in the conservation space. That fills his cup, and that is wonderful when you are able to align your work with your personal values. One of my favorite things that we do at onboarding at Salesforce is we have a huge deck of cards with just adjectives on them. And you pick out all the adjectives that mean something to you. And then you narrow it down to 20. And then you narrow it down to 10. And then to 5 until you're left with the 3 most important adjectives or values. And those are your core values. And people come to meetings and say, my core values are these 3 things. You know the foundation that they are coming from. You know where their heart and their inspiration and their work is coming from. And you have a really wonderful playing field to meet them in that spot, because then you can share your values and, maybe meet in the middle, or maybe learn a little bit about what other people find important. Being able to match your values to your work also allows you to navigate ambiguity with purpose. And this is huge. We've talked about our roles changing. I've talked to so many people that have been in roles for 5, 8 years, and they're not sure what they want to do next. And they're using their values to guide them and to make these decisions, and oftentimes to be ruling out things that are not the next step. And that is important too. Sometimes it's process of elimination of how we get there. We know that there are layoffs in technology all the time. It's just part of the industry that we work in. How can you use your values and what you've learned and treating your career as a practice to actually navigate that with purpose and with clarity? And hopefully the result is career fulfillment. So I'm going to go back to this kind of bees in the head mind map that I had at the screen at the beginning of the different things that I have seen on LinkedIn about people currently in the job market or navigating their career development in this current AI-driven world. And I'm going to reframe it. Some of the words are going to stay the same because they're not going away. AI isn't going anywhere. And I'm going to add in a couple things that when you treat your career as a practice are able to balance out and help you find that presence and that career fulfillment. So what I'd like to leave you with today, and I don't, again, expect an answer. Next year, Mile High Dreamin', come find me. I want to hear about one small, repeatable practice that you've identified that you can commit to, and it can be the tiniest thing. It can be sitting outside with your coffee in the morning and breathing fresh air before you go to your computer. Any little thing, identify it. Commit to it, and then next year, come and tell me how it went. Because I'll be here. And again, thank you so, so much to our sponsors for making today possible, for bringing us all together. Thank you, organizers, and thank you to each and every one of you.